Right, welcome to this week's episode of the Old Paratrooper podcast. And today's guest is former Navy SEAL, host of Special Forces World's Toughest Test, and founder of Elite SEAL Fit, Mr. Jovon Quarles, all the way from Puerto Rico, I believe. How you doing, pal?
Hey, I'm doing good, brother. All the way out hanging out in paradise right now. I'm doing great.
Good stuff. I bet the weather's better out there than it is here. It's absolutely feasible. You can actually see my breath now because it's that cold in the studio. So it's ridiculous.
Nah,
But no, thank you very much.
it ain't cold out here at all. Even right now, I had my AC on because it was freezing in here, but outside it's like a beautiful 75, 80 degrees. I mean, everybody's out at the beach in Puerto Rico. Yeah, you can't beat this. That's why I came out here. I'm always just hang out in Puerto Rico to the end of the year.
Absolutely spot on. I can't fault you. I've just got back from the Caribbean off a Caribbean cruise. So I returned here, and the day after I got back, it snowed. So that was a shock to the system, I can assure you.
Man, I kind of miss the snow, to be honest with you, though. I think at some point this winter, I'm gonna try to go somewhere and catch some skis and some mountains and get some snow. So I'm gonna catch it. We'll see.
No, fair play to you, fair play to you. I can't fault you if that's your thing. I do like the kind of snow and all that as well, but I definitely am more of a warm weather person. As you get older, the joints ache in the cold. That's what I found anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
But no, like I say, thank you very much for making the time to come on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. I know you're really busy kind of doing bits and bobs and kind of, obviously, we just said about the kind of second and third season of Special Forces, World's Toughest Test and stuff like that, which we'll come on to. But yeah, what I like to do with all the podcasts, pal, is start at the beginning, get a bit of background about the guest, kind of where they grew up, and then ultimately what led them down the path they kind of took to the military and beyond. So yeah, over to you.
All right, a little background history, a little background story. For the audience, my name is Jovon Quarles, Jovon Paris Quarles. I was born in Washington, D.C., August 14th, 1980. I'm an 80s kid, and I was raised primarily by my grandparents, right? Growing up back then. My mom was heavily into drugs, alcohol, and anything else. My dad, I didn't know who he was, and I still kind of to this day, I know who he is, but I don't, you know. I found out I had an older sister later in life, and she showed me a picture of him. Uh, Apparently, we look alike, right? But at the end of the day, when you're older, you still kind of have questions like, is that really him? Is that who my dad is? I never heard about this person, but hey, I think this woman is my older sister for sure, but that's just how life is. But anyway, so yeah, raised by my grandparents in Washington D.C. I was the only kid in the house. My grandfather, grandmother, family friend, my aunt, my uncle lived in the house. He lived in the basement, and my mom was in there, off and on, whether or not she was in prison for something that happened or whatever, or she was home. So she would be off and on in the house. And I used to walk to school in DC. The school system was like pretty much right up the street. So you just walk to school, snow, sunny, whatever, didn't matter the weather. At some point, right, because things were going on with my great grandparents and my grandmother was kind of getting over the city life and dealing with all of the drugs and domestic violence that was going on in the DC area. If you don't know about the Washington DC area back then, in the late 80s and 90s, it was still a very, very violent place. Crime
Really?
infested place, murder, right? And people think Washington D.C. is like the capital of the White House, where all the things are
Yeah.
made, right? It's supposed to be the most beautiful spot in America, but it ain't. It wasn't back then anyway. It had a lot of issues. It was one of the at some time in the late '80s, I think, early '90s. It was in like the top 5 in America for murder rates, murder capitals of the world,
Really?
at least
Wow,
of
I
America.
was unaware of that.
Yep, yep. It was bad, man. DC was bad at the time. Definitely not as way as it is now. That's not where it is today. But back in the '80s and '90s, yeah, DC was crazy. The 1900s was still a very tough year, I think, across the world, right? Worldwide. Not year, but century across the world. The 1900s. But so eventually we moved to North Carolina, and now I went from the city to the country, and it's totally different, a totally different energy. I really wasn't vibing with it. I was trying to beg my grandmother to send me back to DC and I could live with my aunts and stuff like that. And because my aunts, were always the nucleus people who tried to play that mother role for me. And my uncles too, they tried to play the father figures for me. I mean, when I got to North Carolina, started playing sports, even my coaches, they were playing that role because everyone kind of understood the situation I was growing up in. So I've always had people to jump in and play that position for me because they knew I didn't have the typical, the standard mom and dad life growing up. So I get to North Carolina. I'm the new kid on the block. You know, we live on an acre of land. There's a church right beside my house. So I was forced to go to church all the time, Christian and all that stuff. Still a Christian today, still, but it was definitely something that was forced on you back then as a young kid. And at some point I got into sports, right? And then I started creating friends, all that stuff. And I found out I had a talent and all that stuff. Cause I mean, I was poor. So I grew up, I would go to school wearing the same clothes from Monday. I wear it again on Thursday or Friday.
Right.
Friend, people, oh yeah, people knew about it too. So I got teased a lot when I got to North Carolina, big time. But then, you know, once I started playing sports and all that stuff, then I started developing skills and I was in a newspaper. You know, my mom was still in and out of prison. She eventually came down to North Carolina. Same thing, still in and out of prison. You know, then it got even worse because, you know, my friends knew about her. You know, people at my school knew what she was in, the drug dealing side, whether she was selling drugs or using drugs or doing whatever she could to get the drugs. So it really wasn't a good thing, you know what I mean, for me. I grew a hard shell towards her. I will say at the time, there was a long time where I honestly didn't like her. Like, I could say it was on a level of hating her because of all the stuff that was going on around her and people who knew about her in my age group, you know, because some of my age group there was drug dealers too. So there was, you know, you don't want to have one of your friends who's 18, 19 years old, 17, even younger or whatever, saying, "Yeah, I was hanging out with your mom last night."
Yeah, it's not ideal, is it?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, she was at our house, you know, at 1 a.m. What they doing at your house? What's she doing at your house at 1 a.m.? You know what I mean? So I grew a very tough uh, uh, wall about her. You know, like I didn't care if anybody said anything negative about my mother. If you said something about my grandmother, it was a different story. But my mother, I didn't even care. But so that was the situation I grew up in, you know, and then she had my younger brother. He was taken by his dad, full custody, a couple years after he was born, because the situation was terrible again. You know, she was leaving him with me to watch. I'm still going to school. She's out in the street doing whatever, and I got this little young kid. So he got full custody, thank God. And so he was able to raise his son, my brother's doing great on his own trucking company in North Carolina. This year, my sister, I'm 12 years older than my brother and about 15 years older than my sister. And we had her again for a couple of years, and then she got taken by the system. So she went in a foster home. Same type of stuff, you know, leaving her with me and she's hitting the street. And I used to like break bad and say, no, I'm not watching her no more. You better take her. As I got older as a teenager, you know, I'm trying to like threaten her. You leave, you better take her with you. Thinking I would keep her in the house. Shit. She straight up would take her with her. So my grandmother got over that at the time, and then it was just one of those things. So it was a tough, you know, growing up at that time, but it was also kind of normal. You know what I mean? Meaning you were used to domestic violence, you were used to anger, you was used to hate, men and women fighting, anything that was going on in the 1900s, racism. You was used to it all. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like you had that thick skin. You developed it. So and then here I am. I have my issues. Yeah, you know, even though I'm playing sports and I'm getting into the paper and all that stuff, I didn't have really people who can really come and watch me. My grandmother was a diabetic. She had a lot of, you know, health issues. She was an amputee from the right knee down. So she couldn't really just get up out and about and come watch her grandson play football, run track or basketball. So my coaches then stepped in. My coaches, my best friends from high school, his parents stepped in and always tried to cheer me on and be that keynote for me, right? Because my grandmother did the best she could. You know, once my grandfather passed, he had a stroke and all that stuff, alcohol, you know, just the way life was back then, like I say, in the 1900s. And eventually, I had a kid in high school, and my grandmother was pissed.
Huh.
So here I am starting the cycle, right? Now, starting a drama cycle, and I was kind of hurt because I didn't want to. I didn't want to, how you say it, like, let someone down, like really let my grandmother down. I really wanted my grandmother because I saw what she was trying to do for me. I really wanted to impress her. So I knew I hurt her. I hurt one of my aunts really bad. So I knew I messed up. And then my grandmother was like, because she knew her health was bad. So she wanted to push me into the military. And that was where, that's where everything about the military started to come in negatively, right? Again, 1900s in America, Black Americans wasn't very keen on the military. You know, you think about the 50s, 60s, 70s, Black people wasn't able to get certain jobs in the military, because of discrimination. All that was still heightened in the 1900s.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you know this at our age. So when my grandmother pitched the idea of going into the Navy, oh, my family hated that idea. It was like, oh, hell no, you're not going into the white man's military, which was understandable back then, right? That was the
yeah, yeah,
what am I going to gain out of going into the white man's military when they don't even allow you to do everything in the military? You know what I mean? That was their frame of thinking. And then going into the war and all that stuff. So they was totally against it. But my grandmother, she had an idea. She was like, I'm not going to be around very long because of my health, and I need to make sure you're taken care of in some way. I wasn't doing great education wise, all that stuff. So it was to a point where it made sense. So I signed up. Had another kid apparently by another chick too. So I basically come out of high school almost with two kids.
right.
So
Okay.
yeah. So then I joined the military, brother. Joined the military, still a little attitude, know a little bit, and have some stuff I'm carrying into the military from my childhood, and I get kicked out of my first job. I wasn't always a SEAL. So I came in under a air crew rescue swimmer contract, which is like, SAR is what we call it, search and rescue. Jumping out of helicopters, like kind of like Coast Guard for the audience. And get kicked out of that program because I was like, showing up late, not doing right. I'm in Florida by myself for the first time in Florida, teenager. So they kicked me out of that program. Yeah, it was bad,
Yeah,
man. It was bad. They kicked me out of that program and then they sent me to the engineering side of the Navy. So, that was like my first big wake up call, a reality check of like, okay, you now are in control of your destiny and you need to make changes if you want to be something worth something. So when I got to the engineering core, that's when I realized, okay, it's now everything's on me. I got to change this around. I liked it, but I didn't like it, right? Because the engineering core, think of it as being a construction worker, an electrician, a builder, cement, concrete worker, or whatever, steel worker. To me, I could have did that outside of the Navy and made more money. You know what I mean? So my mind was like, yeah, this is cool. It's cool to have a trade and learn plumbing and ACs and all that stuff. So yeah, man, I got into the engineering side of it. And again, the engineering side was something that I felt that I could do outside the Navy and make more money. So I was okay with it because I was learning a trade, but I wasn't satisfied, if that makes sense for the audience, right? I really wanted to do something more. So I did great with it. I learned ACs, I learned plumbing, a little bit electrical work, still working, all that kind of stuff. Something I can take outside the military and go and make a true living, right? And work on my own stuff at home. But I still was hungry for something else, And one day I got the chance to work with the SEAL teams, the Navy SEALs. And this just kind of going into how it all started anyway. And I got to a point when I saw the SEALs, I was like, wait a minute, that right there, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. Because those guys, they get a lot of respect. There's a lot of accountability. They're treated like men. Thumbs up. They're treated like men. They get a lot of respect, and it's a huge accomplishment. And not only that, the main thing was I wanted to have a direct effect on what was going on with the war, 9/11, and all that stuff. Because I joined the Navy in 1999, so I wanted to have a direct effect on it. And SEALs were that thing. You know what I mean? And even though growing up, I watched the Navy SEAL Charlie Sheen movie. That was the only Navy SEAL movie that I ever knew
yeah.
about.
I remember it. I remember it. Yeah,
So, Charlie Sheen jumping off the bridge from a, truck in Virginia. I mean, it was just the coolest thing ever, right? I thought the Navy SEALs was cool, but it didn't dawn on me when I joined that was something I can actually apply for in the beginning. Never even, and my recruiter didn't bring it up. So I didn't think about it until the opportunity came to work with him. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. And that's what started the whole journey to applying. My grandmother didn't like it because she wanted me to join the Navy just to be safe, right? She knew what the SEAL teams was. She seen the movies too. She was like, nah, you don't need to be doing that. And grandma was all about protecting me, man. And then she's tattooed on my arm because my grandmother meant so much to me. And everything I think I've tried to do all my life, when I started to understand how to be humble and how to be more, I give that credit to my grandmother because she was the one who first made me want to be more, right? Because she was my inspiration. She was the person I wanted to make proud of me. Of course, my kids, as I understood, I want my kids as a teenager, right? But I really wanted my grandmother to be proud. So then I joined and applied, and then we can go into all that stuff as you like, but if how hard it was for
Yeah.
me.
So what age was you when you actually joined the military? Was you like 17, 18?
Yep, 17, 18 years old.
Yeah. So it's joining the kind of engineers and then kind of flipping and going for the SEALs is obviously worlds apart, isn't it? Obviously, everyone knows the SEALs kind of worldwide. Renowned special forces, along with kind of Delta Force, the SES, SBS, the likes of, they're kind of a recognized special forces. There's no arguing there. We know that they're kind of up there with the top special forces in the world. But it's obviously the training. Was you aware of the training for the Navy SEALs before you kind of applied? Because there's a lot of people that speak to that kind of like go into these things blindly. Was you aware of kind of everything about Navy SEALs when you went for it? So was you kind of mentally prepared, would you say?
I was aware, and that's a great question. Like you said, because most people are not really fully aware of the what you need to really be expecting when you get there, because it's like a myth. You just hear that it's tough and all that, and then we didn't have crazy social media then. YouTube wasn't big on the SEALs. You couldn't like just watch a video on Buds to see what the training is like back then. It was like a myth. You had to like really read and research to find out more about it. So I knew it would be a physical challenge because I knew all about the water stuff. That was the thing that got me. There's so much water training involved. And I was a physical specimen. Like I finished high school as a senior male athlete of the year. So I was a very fast sprinter, jump high, very agile athlete, athletic wise. So I thought I had enough in me that I can survive it and do it and finish it. But I knew at the same time it would be hell because I'm not a water person, Don't nothing about the water. Grew up in DC, North Carolina. I mean, like we was going to the pools and stuff like that. So I knew it would be hell, but I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was. Mentally, it was exponentially hard as shit.
The mentally side of thing is always the kind of hear it because it's your brain that gives up way before your body will. So again, have had members of the SAS on, I've had members of the SBS on, and kind of they all kind of say the same thing. It's a mental thing. It's how far you can push yourself and how driven you are mentally. And if you haven't got that, you could be the fittest person on the planet. And I've seen it time and time again, guys that have come from my unit, the parachute regiment. We have quite a high percentage that go to the SES from my old unit, and they were like you say, specimens, absolute specimens. But week 3 of kind of training for the SES on the hills and stuff, they're back in battalion now, and you're like shocked how someone you'd pinpoint, and then there'd be someone that you wouldn't think that just grizzed it out mentally and kind of got badged and passed. So yeah, I bet you encountered that as you went, didn't you, with people coming through kind of training and stuff for the SEALs?
Everything you said, I encountered it all. Right? We had guys who were ex-professional athletes, tried out, quit. We had guys who were physical freaks more than me. I'm only 5'8". I think when I went in, I was like 180 pounds, somewhere around there. So I was still very light, so I can move easier. But there were guys who were, 5'10", 200, solid muscle, solid rocks, physical animals. And they still had all the athletic abilities, but broke them down. They broke them down and they'd be gone quicker than you think, And I think the normal rule of thumb was if you was to quit BUDS, and for the audience, BUD stands for basic underwater demolition SEAL training, SEAL school. It's a 6-month course. And then there's another piece that you have to graduate, which is another 6 months, which is SQT, SEAL qualification training. So all in all, you got to go through a year before you can be a SEAL. So when you start out at Buds, you see people, man, I mean, quit in the first week. I mean, a shit ton, a shit ton. And Hell Week is the beginning of the 4th week. So the Hell Week comes up pretty quick. And they
Yeah.
want people to go through that hellacious part of the training right away so we can honestly thin the herd. Thin the herd, see who really wants this bad enough before we really divulge a lot of training into you. And then you carry on the next 5 months. And then, well, next freaking 11 months, really, because you still got to do a whole year to become a SEAL. So you see people, man. So again, the rule of thumb, if you're going to let it go, if you're going to be that guy who's going to let their dream potentially leave, quit, give up on your dream, let it be Hell Week that takes you out. Because Hell Week is, like I said, the 4th week of the training. And Hell Week is 5 days straight. You go from Sunday night to Friday morning. You get like, I think 6 hours of sleep total. I think you get 3 hours of sleep on Wednesday and then another 3 hours of sleep on Thursday, something like that. But it ain't sleep. Just so the audience knows, this ain't sleep. This ain't sleep at all. You got to understand you're in a tent outside where people are still working. You hear all the vehicles driving around. You hear people walking, chatting, all that stuff. You are in the center of the base. So it's not like they put you in a place where it's quiet and you can relax and chill. No, you're still in your wet clothes. They just tell you to go inside that tent, and if you can get some sleep, you better try to get it. But if you can't, that's it. And most people, you couldn't. You try to take off your boots, and then you put your boots back on, and man, your feet, because once you stop after going from Sunday night till Wednesday of your first 3 hours of sleep nonstop with very little food, very little water, and because it's meant to break you down like this. So people probably thinking, as I'm telling the story, that this should be illegal. Like, no, it's not. It's not meant to be. It has to be this extreme. It has to be this extreme. You're talking about people who are meant to go out and target the bad guys, the worst of the worst people in the world. They have to be mentally on this level. So if you water this type of training down, what are you sending out there to go get these bad guys? You're sending watered down people who are not ready mentally to go after people like that. So this training has to be this way. So they break you down mentally in your body because you're not getting any nourishment to see what your response will be. And they're watching you. And man, when you take that first rest or sit down for a moment, you take your boots and stuff off, and then a couple hours later, because your body tried to heal, you try to put your boots back on, and your feet are so swollen now because that moment of stopping, your feet are so swollen. You regret the fact that you even tried to get this rest. You regret the idea, like, why? Why did they do this to me? You're like, this is stupid. Now I can't even move my feet. Now, as soon as they come in there and tell you start running, you're like running flat footed until you get some blood flowing, something moving around. But now your feet are completely swollen. This is Wednesday. You still got to go till Friday morning. So it's one of those things, man. So if you're gonna let your dream go, it's like let it happen on during Hell Week because that's when you can say you actually went through something. Don't let it go the first week, the second week where you're just going through hell, but it ain't hell. You know what I mean? Get to Hell Week and then let that take you out. But that's how it went, man. That's how it was.
I've read quite a bit on it on Hell Week, and I've obviously seen kind of programs about it and documentaries and stuff. And obviously, you ring the bell, don't you? If you want to go, there's a bell there. You kind of go up the beach, you ring the bell, and kind of that's it, straight off, no questions asked. And again, I bet hearing that bell, like doing through Hell Week, you're like, it must be kind of in your brain. Well, I don't know. You tell me. I mean, your kind of obviously your mindset. Was there any point in it where you thought, I could ring that bell easily? Or there must have been at a point.
Most people don't even know this about me because most people don't ask the question. I'm gonna give you a very vulnerable piece. I'm gonna give you a very vulnerable piece that most people don't even know. The first time I went into the program, I actually rang the bell during Hell Week. I rang out. I rang out. I had a mental not breakdown, but a mental moment of weakness, right? This was Tuesday morning, kind of Hell Week, like 2 a.m. We just finished eating at the galley. We're coming out of the galley. Galley, how would I say? Is it called the galley on your
A
side?
mess hall, that's a naval thing, but it's like a mess hall where
Yeah.
the scoff house, as we call it in the...
Yeah. See, the mess hall, scuff house. Yeah. So at Tuesday, like 2 in the morning, we're coming out of the mess hall, the scud house, the galley, what we say here. We're about to get to the boats, right? Everything about Buzz, you're carrying boats on your heads, right? You're and your team. It's dark, you know, and you just been through hell. This is Tuesday. We've been going since Sunday night. And I'm looking across the base and I can see the lights of the Navy, the regular Navy ships. I can see the lights, and my moment of weakness came in where I started to justify it's okay to quit in my mind. I started to justify and make it seem like it's okay to quit and go over there and do something normal or another job in the Navy, in the military, still serving the country. It's still a very prestigious thing. Still saying I can serve my country, but I'm doing a different job now, right? Because this that I'm doing right now just probably ain't for me. Maybe this is not what my destiny is. Maybe this is not what God intended for me to do. Maybe this is not what I was intended to do, period. So just take that. Take that, accept that. It's okay. I can at least tell my friends, or not tell my friends can at least look at me and say, they didn't try out for this hellacious training, this hellacious thing, this title, this huge title where you can go out there and really make a difference in the world. They can't. At least I can say I tried out for it. So I use those excuses to justify that it's okay to ring that bell. Right before we picked up the boat, I looked over at the bell. They bring the bell with you on the back of a truck, a pickup truck. So they want you to know it's right there. They're testing you all the time. They're even threatening you to go and ring it. And I walked over to it slowly. Some of my guys in my boat, I can hear them yelling, Q, get back in here. Don't you do it. Don't do it. Yelling at me. And it's almost a moment of slow motion where like your out of body experience, you can see yourself and I can see my dream leaving, but I can also still see that, hey, I still did this. I could try it. I tried it. I ring that bell. Um, the instructor tells me to get in the truck so they can, take me to the other side of the base. But as I'm in the truck and I'm watching the guys start to get the boats back on their heads and really start walking away before they start running with the boats on their heads, that moment I realized all the pain that I was suffering, dealing with, the struggle, the pain of the swelling and all that stuff ended right there just for a moment. So what that meant to me is I could have kept going. That's what that meant. I honestly could have kept going. I could have kept moving forward because at that moment when I quit, I was like, that was just a moment. I honestly could have kept going. You know, Everything, all that pain and suffering and tired and weak and all that stuff, it ends at some point, and then you feel all right. And that's what I didn't understand. So mentally, I let that break me down and I let it beat me. Because at the end of the day, mentally, we are stronger than what we think we. Mentally, we can go up, we can push our bodies further than we ever could imagine we could. But it's a mental task to see if we're up for that challenge. And my first time, I came up against it as a very star athlete growing up in high school. And, you know, when you get the buzz, you talk to like a child, you talk to like shit, you talk to like you don't deserve to be here, you talk to in a mental way to break you down so that you don't believe you're good enough. And I let it all beat me and I let it win in that moment of weakness. And that's what happens to most people. And I am a victim of it as well. I allowed that to beat me to overcome. And I quit.
Well, yeah. Well, it's a difficult one because no one's going to be able to kind of comprehend what you're. I certainly can't. Never been there. Never done it. Again, the only people that you'll be able to relate are the people that have gone on to become SEALs and the people that have failed. They're the only people that can relate to what you're saying. And I suppose it's detriment to your character that you went back and did it again, knowing what to expect. And I always say it's way different. I'm not ex-special forces, I'm ex-parachute regiment. We have a test to get in. It took me 3 attempts to pass the test for my unit. So I always kind of say, and I wore it as a bit of a kind of embarrassment for a long while. I was ashamed of that fact. But now looking back, now I'm older, I kind of, and I hope, I think maybe you'll say the same, as I look back and go, actually, I didn't quit. I went back and did it. Now, I'm not comparing my unit to the Navy SEALs in the slightest, but what I'm trying to say is obviously it takes a special kind of character to then go back, knowing that how tough that's going to be. And kind of mentally, it's a different ball game, isn't it? And how did you find it the second time you went on? Well, firstly, when you went away, how did you initially feel? I can assume maybe you was devastated, but what sort of feelings were you kind of?
Man, I mean, everything you just said was dead on. I mean, when I quit and I realized that I let that moment of weakness take me out the game, I was so pissed at myself because I knew I had let go of that dream. And it's a possibility you don't ever get a chance to come back, right? I mean, when you try to be a Navy SEAL, they get so many applicants coming in. They don't really allow people to reapply, and then they approve you to come back. If you had that one chance that you quit, they're like, well, done. We got millions of people trying out who are applying. So we're going to take somebody new. We already know what you're about. So I really almost lost it all. And I was so pissed at myself. So as we even drove across the street and I could see my class running, I was so angry. And I was determined at that moment to get back and do this again. So when I went back, well, when I got back to my regular Navy command, again, it was embarrassing already, right? Embarrassing to tell my grandmother I quit. Even though she tried to, be that emotional piece and say, hey, it was okay. Maybe it wasn't for you. That's what, your parents are going to do for you. When I got back to my regular Navy job, the people who approved me to go, because you got to get approved to leave your normal Navy job to go over there because they're losing a person that they just don't get replaced. So when I saw all of them, again, my bosses, my ex-bosses, I can see a little letdown in them, right? Because they approved me because they thought mentally that I could do this. Mentally, they believed that I could do it. And when they saw me come back, it was just, I can already see it in their face. I was like, kind of disappointed. And I was like, shit. So, so I was on a rampage to get back, trying to talk to whoever I could. And the the wait time, if they want you to allow you to come back, is 2 years. So I was speeding through that. I was like, I'm not waiting no 2 years. I am going to get back. I was manifesting that idea. And sure enough, I applied again. I crushed the normal test to get approved. You got to take a physical fitness test, and based off how well you do, like high score or mediocre, right? That kind of like puts you in a better position of getting approved. So I dominated the test physically, right? It was like a 500-yard swim or meter swim, a certain amount of push-ups in 2 minutes, certain amount of sit-ups, pull-ups, all that in 2 minutes, and then you got to do a mile and a half run. Dominated it, beat everybody that did the test with me. Had the highest scores, and I got disapproved. They disapproved me. So because they saw that, hey, this guy already went through it and he quit. So luckily, I had a contact in the SEAL teams who was high ranking, and I reached out to him and I said, look, Master Chief Copeland, that was his name. Yeah, I quit the first time. You know this, all that, but I'm pissed, and I really want this. I really want this. Been around the community. I know what the community is looking for, and in a Navy SEAL personnel. I'm meant to do this. Please, if you can help me get back in here, help me get back in here. So I went through my resources, man. I went to him and I asked him, and I gave that pitch to him because it was real, and he understood it. And sure enough, he made a call, and I got approved like a week later after I just got disapproved. So I got approved to come back early, and as soon as I came back from a deployment, I went right in. And again, it was still hell. You know what I mean? Because you can't prep for it. Even now, I just went through the first 4 weeks of it. Your body, there's still no prepping. And my preps all the time prior to going was never doing the type of exercise that you're going to do when you get there. Like I wasn't doing lunges because you're going to be doing forever lunges with a log, with a boat on your head, a log in your chest. I wasn't doing that stuff because I already felt like I'm going to get so much of that. I don't want to beat my legs down before I get there. So I ain't do none of that. running, like people would be running miles a week so they can kind of get their, miles in their legs. I'm like, you're just going to overtrain because when you get there, you're going to find out you can be running your ass off and you're going to have stress fractures. And that happens all the time. So I'm like, nope, not doing none of that. So I did my normal bodybuilding workout routines, chest, back, arms, and shoulders, all my normal stuff. I wasn't about to break nothing down. So I went back in, man, and just like, hey, we're going to do this. And, I'm going to go through the same hell I went through the first time. And like you're right, man, knowing what's coming mentally is another challenge to break through. That's a big wall to break through, bro, because you know how hard that shit was the first time. So now you're like, oh, this is going to suck. You know how hard that boat is on your head, how it hurts your neck. You know how heavy that log is that you got to hold an extended arm over your head or carrying your chest and you got to run with this damn log for hours at a time. You know how cold that water is that they put you in. And you know how much hypothermia you was getting the first time. I was hypothermic a lot because I was very low body fat. So I was always in the hospital or medical dealing with me with rods up my butt trying to get my core temperature back then.
That'll do it.
That's what they did back then. They were putting rods up your butt so they can get your core temperature. So I was like a human pinata on a stick. Yeah, I caught hypothermia a lot, man. So my core temperature would get real low because I didn't have much body fat. So they pulled me out for like 30 minutes and they got to try to rewarm it and then throw me back in. So I knew all this was coming for me. Knew it all was coming again. And like you said, just the mental challenge to get over that, knowing you're about to deal with this hell was a big challenge. People don't realize. I mean, when you do something the second time, you think it might be a little easier because you kind of have a little idea what to expect. But I was only there for a month, so it's still gonna be hell, right? It's still brand new, and it was worse. So get there again, do all this stuff. I mean, some of the stuff I failed, or I passed the first time around. I failed before I even got to Hell Week. Yeah, it was wild. I mean, the weather was worse. I went through in the wintertime for this training in San Diego. Man, we got hailed on. And San Diego doesn't hail. I'm like, what's going on here? We're getting ice dropping from the sky. I'm like, what is going San Diego doesn't get this cold. It's like, so that winter, man, was the worst. Underwater, drown proofing when you're tied up from your hands behind your back and your wrist at your wrist and then tied up at your ankles. That time, that pool water was so cold. And I don't recall it being as cold as it was the first time. So, I mean, it seemed like everything was harder the second time. The 2 mile ocean swims, the 5 mile ocean swim, man, it was horrible. So here we are. We get to Hell Week. I make it back to Hell Week again. We have about 100 and I think about 120 or 130 guys in the class at this time. Yeah, we started with like 260, somewhere around 270. And so that first 4 weeks, we dropped a lot, over 100 people quick. You know what I mean? Because going into Hell Week, we was about 120, 130. So here we are Sunday night. And then we had this crazy idea. I don't know where it came from because we didn't do this the first time. Somebody had heard a word that if you lube your body up with Vaseline, you create a barrier from the cold water to your body. Man, tell me why in the tent we're all butt ass naked Sunday night. Everybody bought a bunch of jars of Vaseline. We're like lubing ourselves up. Man, it was the funniest thing. And we're all mentally thinking, oh yeah, this is gonna help us with this cold ass water. By the time all hell broke loose, and they call it breakout when the first things happen, when you think it's all peaceful and quiet, and you're trying to stay up because you don't know when they're gonna hit you. You don't know when they're coming. You're looking out the side of the tent. You're lifting the bottom of the tent up. So you're looking to see where the instructor's at. You don't see nothing. It's nighttime. You're like, shit, where they at? You're waiting for it to happen. By this time, the damn Vaseline is dried up completely. Everything's just sticky to your clothes. But you're just like nasty, man. You're like, this is disgusting. That was stupid. Who came up with that idea? And I swear to you, I was trying to stay up. And the next thing I know, I passed out on the cot. And as soon as I passed out, I swear to you. And I had just looked outside the tent to see if anybody was out there. Everybody else kind of like was falling asleep, and I'm like trying to be the man. I'm gonna be up. I'm gonna be waiting for them to show up and just hit us with the fire hydrant hose, the crash bangs, the flash bangs, all these the guns with blanks, automatic guns just going off. I mean, just hell breaks loose at breakout when they first start this. Man, as soon as I feel like as soon as I close my eyes, all hell broke loose. I mean, guns going off, fire hydrant coming through the damn tent hitting you. This fire hydrant water was like that thicker water just hitting you. I mean, flashbangs, there's explosions going on. It just and you're delirious and all that. So it was like, here we are. It's Hell Week has just started. Sunday night, I don't know, probably like 10, 11 p.m. And it was like, here we go. You go through that for like an hour. To me, I think that's like a welcome session. That first hour of Hell Week is like a welcome. You just got the Hell Week now. So all hell just broke loose with guns and explosions and fire hydrants. It's just, to me, it was fun. That first hour was fun and chaotic. Chaotic as hell, but just super fun. And then after that first hour, then it's like, oh shit, all the realness, it gets real. And here we go. We get to Tuesday morning again, 2 a.m. on Tuesday. Same thing, man. Same thing happens to me. I get in this place again. We come out of the galley and on the mess hall, and I'm weak. I'm tired again. Same thoughts, same area on the base, same visuals I can see across the base to the other side of the harbor, which is where the regular Navy base was in San Diego. You can see all the lights, all the ships. Hey, here it is. Do I really want this bad enough? You know, you question yourself down again. Because here's the same spot. I'm thinking the same thing. I could just go back, man, just be fine. Why did I put myself back through this again? Why am I in this position again? Why am I doing this to myself? I got to be crazy. Which you got to be crazy to be a SEAL. You got to be a little crazy. And sure enough, man, and the next thing you know, I pushed through it because I said, you know what? I got to make my grandmother proud. I got to make my kids proud. Who in my neighborhood where I come from, where I grew up in, could say they were a Navy SEAL, can say they haven't even tried out to be a Navy SEAL. Who in my family could say they ever even heard of a Navy SEAL or met one before. So this is the chance I can actually do this and be something different than the cycle of life from my community where I grew up in. I can stand out and be more than that thing and do something special and impress my grandmother, make my grandmother happy and my kids happy. Because we'll think about that. I mean, my kids can say my dad is a Navy SEAL. You know what I mean? Does not mean there's not a lot of kids out there who can say that. You know what I mean? So I had that, and all that pushed me through that same moment. I picked that boat up with my crew, and we Charlie Mike'd, and we started running off, and I dealt with the rest of the pain of the rest of the Hell Week, and got fired. I mean, it was a mental challenge, right? I think on Wednesday, because now by Wednesday I was the leader of my class because all the guys who were outranking me, they all quit. So it fell to me, right? Because that's how they make the leaders of the class based off of your rank. So it finally comes to me. Now I'm in charge of the class. And I did not want that job because now I got to deal with the instructors more. Everything is about you. Like if something goes wrong, they blame you for it. They beat the hell out of you more. So now we have, again, we're eating at the mess hall. And I have my watchstanders out there watching the boats, right? You know, like simulating. We got vehicles outside. I need security watching the vehicles. And I'm about to sit down. I just got my plate of food, just sat down, and I was about to tell someone else to go and relieve them. The first people who went in, because there's a long line of us going in there to get our food right. So I was going to tell the first people who sat down to eat, they should be finished. You go and relieve the guys so they can come in and eat now. I didn't have that chance. As soon as I sat down, the instructors came into the mess hall and chewed my ass out and just made me feel so bad as a leader, making me feel like I forgot them out there. Now they're not going to be able to have time to eat. And when we start training again, they're going to be even broke down even more. So, man, they made me feel like shit, made me feel terrible. And I did. I took that personal because I really thought mentally, man, I just messed those guys up. They could possibly quit because of me now because they ain't going to have no kind of food in them. I mean, we're barely eating anyway. They're barely giving us any food and water. But, you know, it's just enough for us to keep good through it. And they wasn't getting anything. So I didn't even eat. They made me go out there and watch the boats myself and let them come in, and they fired me. So it was another challenge wall I got to get through because now I just felt like I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm a bad leader. Maybe I shouldn't be here. So I'm outside by myself, looking across the street again on Wednesday, you know, saying the same thing. Maybe I shouldn't be here. I just messed those guys up. Now I'm out here watching these boats by myself, watching the vehicles by myself. And I took it. I took that on the chin. I kept going. And then I think middle of the day on Wednesday, as the daytime came in, I got hungry. I got hungry for winning again. I got hungry for the challenge. And I actually stepped out of the ranks of whatever we was doing. And I went up to my instructor staff. I said, I want my job back. I want to be the leader of my class again. And it was so impressive to them that he was shocked that I just stopped doing whatever we was doing. And I walked up to him and said, no, I want that back. Whatever happened, I messed up. I want my job back. And he didn't give it to me right away, but he just, cussed me out and told me to get back in ranks. But it opened his eyes, and another instructor who was there who saw it, eyes like, damn, okay. We challenged him because I didn't know this was just a challenge. It was a test. I didn't know that's what it was.
It's mind games,
It's a
isn't
mind
it?
game. Yeah, I thought I really messed up. But to them, they do that to I found out later they do that to every leader. They figure out a way to fire you and make you feel like shit to see what you're going to do. So, sure enough, man, I mean, I think later that night on Wednesday, they fired the guy who replaced me and they gave me my job back. So it worked out, man. And then Thursday came, because like I said, I was hungry now, man. It really, something clicked in me that I wanted to win. I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be that leader. And then something clicked. Thursday, we have medical checks right after lunch. Like, this is the middle of the day. So we strip down to our underwear. The doctor comes by. He's asking everybody shoulder to shoulder, hey, how you doing? How your body feeling? Anybody having any pains, aches, ailments, or whatever? Which we all are, right? But they want to know anything extreme. Because they know if you made it to Thursday, you're going to push through whatever pain you're dealing with. I mean, people have stress fractures and they don't want to say nothing because you don't know if you say something and the medical pulls you out, your dream is over with, right?
That close as well, that close.
That close. And you only got to go till tomorrow morning. So they already know people ain't going to say much. They're just going to fight through it. So that's why they strip you down so they can actually see your body too, so they can see what's going on with you. So I just happened to say something light because I didn't think nothing of it. I said, my stomach hurting. Do you guys do you have any Pepto Bismol or something? And the doc, I guess he knew exactly what I was talking about. So he pulls me out of the lineup. He tells me to lay on the ground. On that, was it the ground or one of the little beds or whatever at the medical center? And he presses on my stomach, and my God, pain. By just him pressing on my stomach. And he's like, you're going to the hospital. I was like, what? Whoa. What are you talking about going to the hospital? I'm like, I only got like a couple more hours to go, man. I'm done. What are you talking about? I'm good. Just give me some Pepto-Bismol and let me roll up out of here. Let me get back to my class. He's like, nope, you're done. Something's wrong with your kidneys. We got to get you back to the hospital. I'm like, hell no, right? So I'm still naked as hell, trying to like talk him out of this. I'm like, sir, what are you talking about me? I'm just only a couple more hours and I'm good. I can go to the hospital later tomorrow. He wasn't hearing. And there was no instructor staff that I could talk to around us. Because when we're doing medical checks, the instructors are doing their own thing for a moment. Because they have a slight moment to relax for a second. So after that, I'm separated from my class, and then they get dressed and they're off and gone. And I'm not with them. And then they got an ambulance coming to pick me up. Ambulance take me to the base hospital across the street. So I'm like, well, on San Diego, because we're working on Coronado. And I'm in there thing. I'm just panicking mentally. I'm like, man, this is effed up, man. I did not quit. I did not do, man. So when I get to the hospital, all I can do is just, these people trying to hook me up to IVs and all this other stuff and test me. I'm trying to get on the phone and call back to the compound and say, hey, I did not quit. Trying to get an instructor. Took me about an hour and a half to finally get somebody on the phone. Because I was not chilling. Mentally, I was not done. I wasn't going to stop. Finally got an instructor on the phone. And he was like, I told him, hey, man, I didn't quit. I didn't quit. The doctor pulled me out and just put me in this ambulance and sent me to the hospital. And he said, is this Quarles? I was like, yes. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. Go ahead and heal up. We'll see you tomorrow. And he hung up on me. I was like, okay. I guess I think that was okay answer. So I took it as that. And then I hung up the phone, and then next thing you know, I was passed out. Woke up the next day on Friday, hooked up to all this shit, couldn't walk. They put me in an ambulance, sent me back to the base. They've already been secured. My class has been secured. They finished with I think 40 something men out of that 120. I think because they always had some celebrity or some politician secure our training pipeline of Hell Week. I think at that time it was Condoleezza Rice. I think she was a part of the Senate in DC or Secretary of State or something. So I missed all of that. But I come rolling through in a wheelchair. All my guys are in their barracks room, laid on the floor, because they put all the mattresses on the floor. They don't want you staying on your bunk bed because you fall over and hurt yourself now because your body is so broke down. So guys are just shaking, uncontrollably on the floor. And I'm just rolling through. And that's what happens. Your body is now trying to heal. So you can't, you're trying to sleep, but you can't sleep. But your body is such in shock that it's shaking like crazy, uncontrollably. And you're in a comfortable room, AC, heat, temperature, fine, but your body is uncontrollably shaking. So you stay there all weekend. You're doing medical checks and all that stuff and all that stuff. So long story short, they said that my kidneys were shutting down because they said my muscles were breaking down internally, and it was poisoning myself. My kidneys couldn't get it out, get rid of it. It was poisoning myself to a point where that I was having so much pain and my kidneys about to stop. And if my kidney shut down, I guess you die. So that's what they pulled me out. They seen this a lot, so that's what they pulled me out and all that stuff. But I was like, man, just give me some Pepto. I didn't think I was gonna. This was a big deal, but they let me stay with my class that following Monday because I found out later that the criteria isn't just from Sunday night to Friday morning. The criteria to pass Hell Week is actually Sunday night to Thursday lunchtime. So I had already made it to that. So they don't tell people that though. They don't want you to know. They didn't want you to push hard and make it all the way to Friday. And I understand that. Remember, that's the whole point of it. So I took it to that point, and then luckily, I made it to after lunchtime, after med checks, and I was able to stay with my class. And the following week, you don't do much of anything because they're letting everybody's body heal. So you just walk everywhere. You're not running anywhere. You're only doing exercises in the pool to like move your body, not like nothing strenuous. Even the instructor's not even yelling at you no more. They're being chill too because they just had a hellacious week that as well. So they just chill. Nobody screaming at you. So that following week is like Monday through Friday is pretty laid back and chill. You just kind of walk, you eat, you nourish your body, you deal with medical. If you have any medical issues, you go there. And that's when we find out you still lose a few more people because their body is just that jacked up. You'll lose at least another 10 more just from that week because they'll find out they're so jacked up. They don't kick them out of the program. They just put them in a holding process until their body heals. And then when the next
Then they
class
can
comes,
come back and take, yeah.
yep. When the next class gets up to where they just got out, they just sink into that next class. They just don't stay with us in that class anymore. So yeah, you'll lose another 10 people out the Hell Week right away. And then the following week after that, that's when it's game on again. It's your ass again. You ain't shit. You ain't nobody. Stand by to stand by. So that's how it went down.
Yeah, like I say, Hell Week just sounds. I suspect, obviously, by the time they try and get you to like Thursday lunchtime or whatever, they're going to expect medical kind of issues when you've been hammered for that long. So that's probably why they do it, isn't it? They don't tell you that, but they're going to expect, like in your case, you didn't want to come out. You'd have gone back out there, of course you would, but the doctor, for your own safety, pulls you out. And it's probably to be expected, like breakdown of kind of bodies and being thrashed for that length of time. That's probably why they kind of, but yeah, it does sound horrendous. Like I say, I've seen documentaries, but I can't comprehend. You're never going to be able to comprehend that, like you say, the temperature of that water, you kind of the feeling of exhaustion. And I've always said it, you can cope with a lot of stuff in whatever you do. I liken it when you have a kid, you can kind of get on with stuff. But when sleep deprivation's involved, you kind of things get to you, it stresses you out. The things that wouldn't bother you before, your brain's not thinking straight. You know what I mean? So you've had 5 days of there of sleep deprivation with, kind of 6 hours maximum if you're lucky sleep. You're kind of going to be all over the place. You could do anything if you get sleep, can't you?
Yes, you said that shit right, man. I mean, every bit of it, brother. It was just, it was the way, and then coming from a person like where I come from, right? All these things I went through was something brand new for me. I didn't grow up hanging out, camping in the woods and getting that sense of living in that wild, that grungy life. You know what I mean? Because when you do camping, that's a grungy life for a moment. Based on how you do it. You can actually be really camping, or you can do the luxury camping. You just kind of like, have it all and you're just chilling. But when you're really in that space, like 'cause some of my friends, especially when I got to North Carolina, their parents took them camping, like out in the mountains for a week, in it, had them like learning how to fish and just in that water, doing wild stuff like that. I didn't grow up in that space, so everything I did was brand new. Everything that went to me was brand new, so it was all a challenge for me mentally and physically. So, and it all sucked, man. At the end of the day, that was just week 5. You know what I mean? I still got a whole 9 months to 11 months to go of this. And, then, you continue on, you got the next phases, diving phase, where you're now learning open circuit, closed circuit, rebreathers. And remember, I didn't do well in school, so I wasn't the smartest guy in the bunch. So I didn't learn very easy. So because I didn't learn very easy, because I didn't learn growing up, I didn't exercise my brain like that, man. I had to spend more time studying, right, than the next man. So while other people are sleeping now, I'm still up late night. So the next day, I'm even more tired, exhausted. And we still got this crazy hellacious training going on. Before we even go and do the stuff in the pool, we're still doing the normal stuff. We're still doing a 2-mile ocean swim. We're still doing a 4-mile time conditioning run at 4 a.m. in the morning. You know what I mean? Now I'm doing that with only 2 hours of sleep because I've been up late studying. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it was still just compounding more shit on you and getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse for me. And then it just mentally was a task because I'm still thinking I'm not good enough because other guys were catching on easier than me. I didn't understand the rebreathers. I didn't understand the scuba diving, the dive physics. That's what people did. I didn't get that. And you have to study that. You have to pass these tests because they don't want you to be some dummy in the SEAL teams. You got to be a critical thinker, right? You got to be a guy who can think on your feet. You got to be smart. You got to be able to identify certain things really quickly and make these adjustments. So it was a task for me, man, the entire time. And I say I went through it. It was a challenge. I graduated, long story short. And by the time I graduated, this is the kicker that a lot of people don't know as well. I graduated as the honor grad of my class, number 1 in my class.
That's
We
some
started with,
achievement, that.
we started with 270 men. We graduated with 15 from that original 270. And I was the honor graduate. I had to make a speech and do all that in front of everybody. And I was nominated as the honor graduate from not just the classmates, but the instructor staff. They saw the effort, they saw the energy, they saw the extra time I put in. They saw everything I was trying to do to graduate. And my classmates did too. So I was voted through both. It wasn't like it was a gimme thing. It was something that it was earned, and I earned that right to graduate and be on that list now that will forever be there as one of the top graduates. And I'm now known as the first Black graduate to graduate top of his class in that pipeline. So that was huge. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, just passing through SEAL training as a whole is some feat, but to kind of be kind of nominated, obviously, kind of top of the class as well, is like it's like a proper outstanding achievement, and it's something that you'll hold kind of. Do you think? I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but do you think your upbringing, because your upbringing was very, very harsh, you've been open about that at the very start of the podcast, but do you think your upbringing played a part in your mental toughness? Because you've had to be mental tough since a very, very young age because of everything you faced. Do you think that was kind of something that maybe even inadvertently helped prepare you for that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it presented me with a goal, a bigger goal, and an inspiration to achieve the goal. You know what I mean? If I grew up with, a normal mom and dad, normal stable family home, narrative or whatever what people identify as that, I probably probably would have never been in this Navy, period. Right? Because my life would have had me thinking about doing other things. Because I only went to the Navy, only necessity, struggle, right? To try to get out of some situation. So if it wasn't for the struggle of life already on me that created the driving effort to be something bigger than the struggle that I came from, I don't think I would have been able to make this program.
Yeah, I see this a lot with people I talk to, and a lot of people, again, they leave school with or high school in your case in the States with like very little qualifications. I fall into that bracket as well. I've got 0 qualifications, and then the military seems to be one of the only options. But what I found, and I don't know about yourself, that people learn at different rates. You said about the academic stuff, but you have kind of abilities clearly in other kind of avenues that the kind of high school don't tap into. And I see that a lot in the UK as well. There's kids that kind of can't learn, that struggle academically, but you put them in something in a practical environment, they thrive. And that's something that I'm hoping that we will address in the future in probably the States and over here in the UK, but they don't seem to be kind of working on it. You know what I mean? And it annoys me a little bit, if you like.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get you on that, man. I think if you have, I mean, because some people who grow up in such a cushy situation, and I don't say that in a negative way, right? I mean, because you wish a lot of people had some type of good situation, upbringing, right? You wish they had the cohesiveness of a mom and dad together, mom and dad working together, doing everything they can for the child or children. So there's nothing. I'm not being negative when I say that to people about people, but I'll definitely say that it can hinder you in a way, because if everything was been given to you in a much easier way, then when you face something that's a big challenge, then it can turn into something that, oh my God, and you're just bouncing all over the place trying to find yourself, because everything that presents to you as a challenge, you tend to believe it's not for you, because it's like, oh, that's too much or whatever, because you're looking for the easier thing, the thing that comes so easy. It's like, water makes travels the path less resistant or whatever. And I think that's what a lot of people in those situations try to find. People who grow up in, like you said, man, a lot of guys I even know who've done a lot in special forces, whether it's in SEAL teams, whether it's SAS, like even on the show, like Billy Billingham. He's the SAS guy. He's SAS for like 30 years. Listening to his stories when we were together making the show Special Forces, he grew up with all types of craziness, you know what I mean? And then he turned that around and became one of the most well-known SAS operatives, you know what I mean? Because of the stuff he had to go through. And a lot of what he talks about is because of the struggle he grew up in, you know what I mean? It just goes to show you that, man, when people have hunger for something because they had nothing, they know what it's like to have nothing. It gives them that extra driving point to be more. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I fully understand where you're coming from. If you've got nothing, if you're in a cushy kind of, you've got something to fall back on when the going gets tough on SEAL training, SCS selection, whatever it is, you'll look for a way out because you've got something to kind of drop into, go back to that's cushy. And a kind of, but if you haven't got that, and you've got nothing outside of the military or that, and you've got it's surely it's going to push you, isn't it? Because that's your sole focus. And I liken it very much to, there's a friend of mine that went through selection. One of my best friends, he served with the SBS, and at the time he had money issues, he had problems, and he had nothing to kind of come back to. So that was the driving force to kind of push on through. And obviously you've touched on Billy's story there as well. I've had Billy on the podcast. Billy's from Two Para before he was in the same unit as me, a bit before my time because he's a bit older than us. But yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's got to have helped with your childhood. You wouldn't have seen it at the time, obviously. And I bet there's part of you that kind of wishes you had a normal and stable upbringing, of course. But again, all roads led and lead to kind of where you're at now. So you have to be kind of thankful for that in a weird kind of way, don't you?
Oh yeah, man. And I am, and even in my teachings today, I'm always telling people be thankful for what your life is, whether you got a good one and it started out good from birth, or whether you had a bad one too. Be grateful for it, because I'm telling you, it can really create you. It can give you something valuable, more valuable. Where you can feel that impact on life that you're giving others. And if you're in a season of your life right now where you're struggling, I mean, it's just a season. Go through that season, identify it, and try to find ways to get out of that season until you get to that point where you're on the rise. Because we all go through it, right? I was in that season of struggle until I found my niche, well, not my niche, but my calling. When I found that calling, I was able to rise past that season of struggle. But it took time, right? It took time. It took grit. It took, man, resiliency to just to want to keep going. So man, I tell people all the time, and I preach that in my mindset coaching is what I do on my Instagram and all that stuff. Be grateful. And you'll always hear me say that kind of stuff. Be grateful for whatever you got going on right now, because somebody got it worse than you. Somebody would love to have your situation, but your situation can always create something better for you. You just you gotta go through the process. There is a process. You got to pay those dues.
Oh, absolutely, pal. Absolutely. So obviously you did a full career in the military. Obviously you've served kind of with distinction all over the globe. I'm certain, obviously, I'm not going to ask you to talk about operations for obvious reasons. But obviously, am I right in thinking you did sort of 22 years in the military? Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep. Yep.
So is that a full term career within the US military, very similar to the UK? You do 22 years and then full pension kind of thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I did 22 years straight, no broken time, from 1999 to June 99 to July 2021. No broken time and pension and all that stuff. I got right away.
What rank did you finish as, if you don't mind me asking?
E6. Only finished at E6.
So what I want to ask you, and again, it's a sensitive topic, just because I know full well I joined the army in 1997. I was born in 1980. I'm 44 years of age, similar to yourself. Did you encounter any kind of, and again, it's a sensitive topic, while you were in, would you say you encountered racism while you were in the military?
While I was in, I can't at the moment identify it directly, right? Because one thing about racism is it's very hard to identify unless you got someone who's very brazen and brash and just don't. It's like I'm going to tell you how it is, like it is. Because most people who are racist, they know how to hide that, right? They don't.
Indirect and direct racism, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they know how to hide it. If they don't like you because of your skin, because of whatever, they won't tell you because they're cowards, right? At the end of the day, we would love for people to just walk around and take you out. This is how I am. I don't I don't want you mixing with my culture or my race. I want my culture to stay with their own people and blah blah and all that. You know what I mean? But they know what not to say. So that indirectly, I definitely felt some things come at me. Like I was writing out, and this could be overthinking, but this is something I really I had a very sour taste in my mouth with a lot of guys that I worked with at this one time. My boss especially. And I won't say the year this went down because if they ever get a chance to see this, I don't want them bugging me about it. But um, there was a time where I was on deployment and I was writing something. I was writing a book about my life. Yeah, I was writing a book about my life, my upbringing, and I didn't hide it. Right, I wasn't. There's a lot of guys who put in books about operations and secret classified stuff. This is about me writing about my life, my upbringing, which I'm writing one now again. And I told my guys in my platoon about it, and I didn't hide it while we was on deployment. It was during our downtime. So when we get back to America, all of a sudden I get called in by the big boss. Get called in by the big boss and by myself. My boss, personal boss. Normally in the military, so people can understand. In normal military, whenever the big boss of the complete division, department, the team, the SEAL team, let's say that, calls you in to have a meeting with you because something's going on, they heard something or whatever. Your direct supervisor always is with you. Your direct supervisor always knows why they're asking for you anyway, because they've already had the conversation. They call and talk to your boss directly to ask this kind of stuff. So now the big boss wants to know a little bit more about you directly. So I get called in and I ask my direct boss, what's this about, He said, no, I don't know nothing. I was like, okay, you going in with me? No, you got it. I'm like, what? So, and I'm a younger guy at this time, younger enlisted guy, and I'm like, I feel unprotected now. I feel like somebody ain't got my back here. And it seemed very weird to me that my direct boss doesn't know what's going on. Why am I being called to go see the big dog? So I go in there by myself, and sure enough, it's about this book that I'm writing. So the big dog got wind of a book that I'm writing, and he's asking all these questions, and he's like, "You can't be doing this and doing that." And I'm like, "I'm writing this book about my life. I can write a book about my life. Period. My upbringing. It has nothing to do with the SEAL teams, the military whatsoever. The struggle of my life is what I wanted." And I come out of that meeting feeling like I was a target. And then that thing carried on. When I got to my next command, it carried on there. Right? It's like they passed the word to the next person, next person, next person. I didn't get a job. And I think part of that was also because of that. I didn't get a job that I needed to get in order to make the next rank. And I think that was put on me. And then when they tried to give it to me or they asked me if I wanted it, I was already towards the end of my career now. I was already thinking about getting out and planning my next life. And I was like, nah, it's too late now because now I got to do this, do that. I got to hop, skip, and jump for you just so I can try to get that rank so I can continue my career on where now I've already planned to get out and retire and do other things. Y'all should have gave it to me when it was my time. I was deserving of it at that time. And he didn't give it to me. And that was, yeah, as it carried on and followed me, because my next boss, it was a woman, she even laughed at the situation. She so laughed at it. She like, you got to go see the big dog. I was like, why? She was like, somebody over the weekend, this is how this went out. Somebody over the weekend went through my social media page and they saw that I was I was hanging out on a private jet with some very wealthy people. And they said, they want to make sure you ain't doing nothing dirty. I was like, number one, why is Special Forces looking at my social media on a weekend when I'm doing on my own weekend? And then on Monday, they want to call me in the office and see what I'm doing. And she cracked up. She was like, Q, she just said, listen, I already tried to say that same stuff. Like, do we not got other important things that we need to be doing other than checking out his social media page? And why was my social media page the target? So it was wild. I went in there and again went in there and talked to this person. She didn't go this time because she just said I can't do it. She was just like, I'm not going in anymore. That's it. She had my back. I could tell she had my back, but she was already kind of pissed and laughing at the situation, like this is stupid. So I went in there and there was two other people in there, kind of like waiting to kind of like thrash me or something or whatever, whatever. But it was the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I've had that indirectly, I think. I feel. And I don't think nobody would directly. I had to directly more so when I was in school. You know, people didn't care then. People just, especially in the '90s, they whatever they would say.
It is a '90s, wasn't it? Like I say, it was just kind of in your face with that sort of thing. And it's still a thing now. Obviously, people talk about it, and it's kind of still a thing, which I still can't grasp. Like I can't grasp for me that it was ever a thing, but I can't grasp that in 2024 shit like this still happens. I can't get my head around it. I don't know how you feel about that. I'm sure you feel exactly the same, but
Yeah,
it's
it's weird.
just
It's weird. It's weird. But it's to me, I identify it as people, and I think about all the worlds. Now all the worlds, every nation on the world, every nation to me has always had some form of racism, right? Where people were, for whatever reason, convinced that another group of people were less, were just terrible, were crappy, were don't do this or whatever. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. They're just less than people. And then eventually people come out of that ideal, but there's always people who still believe that in some version of it. And I think it's just the nature of human beings. We are evil by design. We all have some type of form of evil in us. But we just choose to not go the evil side of us, right? But we all have that evil side of us in us. Some choose to be evil and just stupid, and others like people like me, you. We only be evil when evil comes to us, and we have to show who's the more dominant one.
yeah. Well, that for me, that's a long time ago now. I'm like I say, I'm a firefighter, so I do all the helping people now. But yeah, it was a long time ago for me. But no, it's like I say, the mind boggles. It's always been about, and sadly, I think it will always be about. But again, it's just narrow-mindedness by a small majority. But yeah, it grips my shit, to be honest, pal. But hey, hope that, like you say, that's human beings, and that's the way they are, innit? You can't change it, really.
Yeah, we are bad by design.
Yeah, unfortunately. I just want to touch on briefly with the military before we kind of move on. I'm conscious that I've kept you for like an hour 20 now. That's flown by. But I want to ask you briefly, last thing on the military was obviously you've worked with, obviously I'm from the UK. You would have worked with kind of UK SF over the years. What's your opinion of like kind of the SBS? Did you work with the SBS quite a lot as well as the SES, or was it more SES?
I
And
want to
kind of
say,
what's your opinion of them?
I think when I was deployed, I mainly worked with the Aussies. I worked with South Korea. The Brits, I definitely work with the Brits, and with more SA, no SBS, more SBS. And actually, one of my training classes I had to go through, I had a cool SBS guy go with me. I mean, he was in there. His name was Ronan. I love that dude. Big old Brit. Foxy from the show, they're like best friends. Jason Foxy. So when I brought up to Foxy that me and his boy went to training, he was like, "Man, I know Ronan. Ronan's my best dog, my best bloke."
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, every one of them, I don't have any negatives about any one of the other foreign countries that I work with, special forces that I work with. Everyone has been super cool. Everyone's super cool. I've learned that over time, not over time, but just in general, that when people try to compare who's the hardest special forces, I always telling people all the time, like when I think about SAS and SBS and SEALs, I'm always like, bro, them some raw dogs over there in the Brit side of it. When they went through training, there, and I'm not even saying that just because of who we are talking on the Zoom. That's something I've always said to people, like the SAS versions, the SBS people, them jokers over there in the Brit side, because y'all training is also as strenuous as ours, and but y'all even have less safety parameters than we have, right? I think America has a little bit more safety things to kind of keep people from not dying or whatever during our training. But when it comes to you guys on y'all side, I think you guys didn't have much safety line, so you guys could actually die more in training than anything. So it was like, I was like, bro, these guys went through hell to be a SAS and SBS guy. So it was yeah, I say that for the most part. And Delta Force is another one. Yeah, I like to put Delta in there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think what we have that kind of like you're saying about obviously it gets cold in San Diego, but on the Brecon Beacons where they kind of do the hills face for selection, by God, that is a horrendous place. So that kind of if you do the summer or the kind of winter selection, obviously I've not done it, but yeah, I have a lot of friends that kind of have done it and have said the hills in Brecon are brutal. But again, I think there's a kind of a mutual respect between the kind of states and the UK and the Aussies and stuff like that. They all work closely.
Hmm.
Certainly, current kind of situation in the world over the last sort of 20 years has meant that we've everyone's pulled together and worked hand in hand. And I think it's like a sort of a great thing that kind of an exchange of training and everything else. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I
yeah,
agree, man. I agree, and I think as long as we have the right leaders in place, I think that we should never break those relationships up. You know what I mean? Those because sometimes in government politics, man, you be like, what the hell are y'all doing? Like, why are y'all causing rifts between, us and the Australians or us and the UK? Like, those are our boys. I got badass friends in these countries, and like, what you think? We gonna go to war, do something stupid against that? Go to war, do something against Mexico? Mexico is right here. Like, what? Like, what are y'all doing up there in the White House? So sometimes you gotta. I just look at some of this stuff when I think about politics, and I'm just like, man, we have people that's in charge who are just the dummies. They're out of touch with.
detached from human nature, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I was about to say, yeah, no, that detached right there because it's like these are our friends. Like when people say these countries are our allies, I think some people in politics they only look at it as countries. They don't look at it as we have two people knowing each other. It's not just the country. It's like, hey, I know a bunch of guys live in the UK. These are my friends. You know what I mean? It ain't like just we're good countries. We're cool together as country. I'm like, nah, it ain't just about something that cliche of saying we're just allies as countries. And I'm like, no, we are friends. These are my boys over here. You can't be talking about why are we doing this to them. I'm like, what? We all have a mutual interest. This is stupid. What are y'all talking about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's definitely that mutual interest there, definitely. But yeah, moving on from obviously the military, you've kind of hosting the special forces kind of world's toughest test and stuff. How did you fall into that, and how did you find it working with kind of the people like Rudy and all the other people in there? How much of an experience was it? Was it good?
It was a great experience, man. I mean, when I first got the job, let me tell you the story how I got it because I didn't even know I didn't believe it was real. They had another SEAL on season one, and he was doing something different, so they wanted to get another SEAL. So when they reached out to me on social media, a casting director, I thought it was all BS. I didn't believe it at all. I'm like, what? Whatever. This is stupid. You get scams all the time. Reach out to you on social media, right? So I didn't think it was real. So I was like pushing them off, pushing them off, pushing them off. Little did I know it was real, and they were also interviewing other SEALs at the same time. I had no idea. So when I finally started sitting down doing Zooms with them, they started asking me questions about my career. I gave them a little bit of information that I could, that's not classified. And then it was asking me to, how will I feel being on a show where I got to deal with celebrities and I got to instruct them. I was like, I look at celebrities with a respect as I look at anyone else. Celebrities are people who I think are expertise in their field, like a doctor is an expert in his field, right? So then I'm gonna give them mad respect. You could be an actor, great. If you're a famous actor, that means you are one of the top experts in that thing. So you get mad respect from me. But I look at celebrities and myself as a SEAL. I'm like, they couldn't do what I do. You know what I mean? So there's a level of mutual respect there. I can't do what they do, and they can't do what I do. And they probably would go crazy trying to do what I do. So I was like, yeah, I can handle dealing with celebrities. I mean, there's only like a handful that I really would go crazy over seeing anyway, meeting, because I just had that kind of like, wow, that person went through all this and became this. So I got the job eventually and off of a Zoom, and the guy was first like, okay, on this Zoom right here, we're gonna have you one more Zoom interview. I was like, all right, fine, we'll do a Zoom interview. And the next thing I know was Billy and Foxy and Rudy on the Zoom for the first time. Everybody else was always the directors and casting people. But on this last Zoom, it was all the other hosts. And I was like, shoot, okay, all right, this is real. So they said they saw a lot of my videos, all that stuff, and they chose me if I would take the job. They would like to have me. And I was like, oh, absolutely. You ain't gotta say if I would take the job. I'm taking it. Let's go. I'm all in. So the opportunity came. It was great, man. And when they flew me to Miami to meet up with Billy and Rudy, and then to the UK to meet up with Foxy. And we all got like mutual things that we really enjoy. Like me and Foxy, big gym guys. So every time we hang out, we're all about going to the gym and eating a bunch of protein. And Foxy's a big dude. Foxy's a big unit, as they say, right? He's a big old unit, man. I love that dude. So me and him are always like the same. We drink a lot of water. We don't really drink alcohol, but we're all about protein and hitting the gym. Billy, Billy is, man, he's just that old school, SAS guy, mad stories. His memory is insane. I always brag about his memory because he can remember shit that I couldn't even tell you about, 5 years ago. He still remembers everything from 5 years ago. Uh, and Rudy, he's just that loving, Marine recon. He just wants everybody to win. You know what I mean? And he always has me. He takes me under his wing, as I'm more newer to the entertainment industry than all the rest of them. So all of us have a great connection, man, and we stay in contact even when we're not filming. We send out each other messages and all that stuff, little videos saying hi, whatever. So even when we're not filming, we're still highly connected.
Oh, excellent! It sounds like you do. Obviously, I've seen the program, and it seems like you do have like a real connection. And I suppose that goes back to kind of what we talked about with that mutual respect between kind of foreign forces and obviously Marine recon and stuff like that. So that's good to see, and I'm glad you kind of have a high opinion of them because they're kind of very popular figures back here in the UK in the program itself. So, yeah, no, awesome stuff. So, like you say, it's just been kind of renewed. You've just had your contract renewed for a second and third season, or the third season.
Yeah, we just did a third season we shot, and that's coming out this January. So yeah, I did season 2, which everybody has already seen probably on Hulu here in America or Fox. And then season 3 is coming out this January. They just did the first trailer launch like a week ago. So it's pretty hyped out here. I mean, people in America loves it. I mean, and I got to give it up to the British production company or team who started this whole thing. I mean, what y'all have out there, it was called SAS, Who Dares Win. You guys had that for years. That's been going on. You had a celebrity version and a civilian version. And that's how we got started basically with this. America, Fox, the major TV network here, found out about what you guys were doing with that show. And they reached out to your production company and asked them would they be willing to make it for us. So Fox just pays the British production company, Minnow Film, to make an American version with just 2 American, special forces on there. So that's how that whole thing got started because of you guys. You guys already had that whole thing streamlined and looked good, and we America was like, oh, that'd be a great show to bring to America, and It's doing really well. People are going crazy about
Yeah, no, good stuff, good stuff. Like I say, it's been popular over here for a considerable amount of time, and it was good when they went over and they kind of did it in the States and stuff. And I wonder whether it will kind of branch out elsewhere as well, because it is very, very popular. People like it. I think people get a little bit mixed up with kind of that when they pass, when they've done the SES, are you tough enough kind of programs, and some of the people do the 2 weeks or whatever it is and pass out. They think that they've completed SES selection, and you're a bit
it.
like, no. You've not even touched on it. 1%, but there is that part of it. But yeah, I think it kind of for years. I think obviously the special forces units have been under such sort of mystery. For one, I think it's good that you get to hear more about them. I don't mean the operational side and the stuff that's classified or top secret, but it's good to know that these guys like yourself, Billy, and Foxy and Rudy, and all have served their country and done what they've done, and to get some sort of recognition. I for one, think it's a good thing. Whereas you'll get some old school people go, well, they shouldn't be talking about or share. It's bollocks. It's all good. You should get the recognition you deserve for serving your country. Me personally, but
Yep, yep. And it's great, man. People like you, just like you said, people love this stuff, and they love to see a version because they seeing true, authentic special forces operatives, like kind of in their element, and how we train people and how the selection is kind of meant to be, why it's meant to be so hard and mentally tough. The celebrities or the contestants that go on it, they don't like us at the time, right? I mean, just like in reality, I didn't like my instructor staff at the time. I took a lot of the stuff they were saying to me personal, and because it's meant to break you down mentally. I mean, that's just the way it is. So I think people enjoy seeing a true aspect of what that's like, a reality TV show that's not being held to some sort of rules or trying to make it to Hollywood, because it's all unscripted. It's all realistic. It's all about how we train people and what they can handle. What people can handle.
yeah, absolutely. And it's good to see these celebrities kind of like the real version of themselves, because that is the real version of yourself, not when people are watching, when you're behind closed doors and when you're under immense amount of stresses. That's when your true character comes out, isn't it? So it's kind
Yeah.
of good to see. You get a different side, and some surprise you. Some celebrities surprise you, go, wow, and some you're like, I was expecting more. But yeah, no, it is what it is. But no, I really like the programs. Moving on, then, I'd like to talk about, kind of Elite SEAL Fit and how you came about starting that, and where that's at, and kind of what you do with it, if that's okay.
Yeah, at least still fit came out, man. Because when I first got out the Navy, I went through a little depression. I didn't know what to do in my life, right? Because I was so much 22 years in the military that I always had some stuff in order. Something was telling me what to do next. So now I'm out and I have to make my own decisions and I have to figure out what I'm gonna do next. So I went through a little depression. And then one day I just kind of woke up with the idea of like, man, I'm already into fitness. I'm always in nutrition. I need to, maybe I can create something that can give back to people, that can help others, right? Because that's what being in special forces is about anyway. You're meant to help other people. People don't understand that ideal behind it is my job is to go overseas, take out bad people from the community so the community can feel safe enough to go to the local markets without feeling like I'm gonna get blown up or shot at because we got all these terrorist people roaming the streets of this city, but our job is to go out there and take these people out so you can feel safe in your community. So I wanted to figure out a way that I can give back to the community still. So Elite SEAL Fitness came through of, a Navy SEAL training regimen that I can give to the population and teach them how we work out. But not as necessarily as trying to create a Navy SEAL, but just trying to teach you how to be happy and functional in your own skin, in your body. And when I created that program, that's what it was for. So I sell my fitness program online, and I'm in the process of making it even better through an app. So that will be coming soon, where you'll see me actually walking, a video of me showing you how to do these particular workouts instead of you just downloading something on doing the workouts. So we're always trying to make things better. And to add with that, Elite SEAL Fit now, I've incorporated another company that me and another SEAL created, which is called Elite Leadership Consulting Group. So I teach leadership, I teach teamwork, I teach communication and keynotes and in team building exercises, whether we'll take a supervisory company with their supervisors and we'll put them into a team building exercise outside where I create chaos for like an hour. But It's meant to teach them about critical thinking as a leader, right? Critical thinking, how to communicate, how to get your employees to see what needs to be done, and to want to create value and get that production done in an efficient way, right? So that's what we've been able to do, and I do that pretty much, about once a month. Like Hertz Car Rental will call us up and say, we would love for you to come and train for an hour, give our top leaders a crash course on team building on the beach. So we'll go out there. Maybe I'll get a few light logs, nothing like we did at Buds, but something to give them an exercise and teach them about how to work as a team, how to communicate, how to lead, all that stuff. So we do all that stuff, man, and I incorporate that now into everything. And that's basically all in my personal website, which is jovonquarles.com. And then people reach out to me on my Instagram, which is, Jovon P. Quarles, or my LinkedIn, same thing.
Yeah, happy days. No, it sounds really, really good. Obviously, you're aware kind of one of the big goals I'm trying to push is obviously the mental health awareness within veterans, communities, emergency services as a whole, really, because it's still it's still a stigma around it. So it's good to see other people. I think everyone's kind of singing off the same song sheet. Everyone's trying to push those kind of messages out there, and through fitness. Fitness is a great thing, isn't it, to improve kind of mental health? Getting in the gym, I gym a hell of a lot, and out for walks and run when I can when I'm not injured. Yeah, so all that kind of stuff is trying to push them messages out there for kind of all aids positive mental health, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. So mental health is huge. Just a year ago, I lost my last CEO of my SEAL team. Committed suicide. So mental health, and that was the CEO. That was our boss. He's up there on the level of ranking and everything. Had a wife and a couple kids, so it's like it can affect anyone. People think that it doesn't affect people, the very wealthy or whatever. It affects everyone. Mental health is a huge driving
Absolutely.
force, which is also why I'm affiliated with another mental health product line that I normally share on my social media called Happy Juice. It's kind of a cliche name, but it's really meant to help get into the serotonin in your body, help calm the nerves, the mood, help get that happy feeling into your system. It's just a drink, a juice. And I love all this stuff, man. So everything that you talk about with mental health, mindset, coaching, I'm a huge advocate and believer of all that stuff.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. And lastly, before we kind of wrap it up, you mentioned before you got 2 books. Well, you got 2 books out, is that right? Or you're in the process of writing a second book?
Well, the first book I was writing when I was active duty, I put that on pause after all that drama went down. So I'm basically redoing it now as I'm going in for this. So this it'll be coming out. It should be done. Excuse me. That should be will be done before the year's out, and then they got to go through the whole phase of getting cleaned up and edited, and then not published, but market it. So I got to get with a publicist and have me get all this stuff ready to go. So either by the end of season 3 or by the beginning, if we get a season 4, which I don't see why we won't get a season 4, I'll have a book coming out basically based off of how a mindset book, really, based off of how to grow from struggle to something more successful and being more who you want to be. And it kind of goes to my upbringing that we kind of talked about: domestic violence, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff, foster homes, all that stuff, and then how I became who I am today. How all that helped me become who I am today. So you'll see that coming soon. That'd be huge.
Excellent stuff. Well, I will, for one, will definitely be getting myself a copy of that. So if you feel free to send me, obviously I'll buy it, but if you feel free to send me a signed one, I'll take that off your hands.
I'll send that to you. I'll send that to you, big dog, for sure.
Nice one, pal. Well, I'll have a quick chat off you in a minute off air, pal. But it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad we got it done because it's been absolutely fantastic. I think the viewers and followers are absolutely going to love it. And yeah, it's been a real privilege to get inside your mind and talk about the training and kind of your life that you've gone through, pal. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it, brother. Anytime, Chris.
Thank you. You take care.
You too, bro. You too.